My sister was halfway through her memorial speech when she looked straight at me and smiled like we were still a family. It was a soft, practiced smile, the kind she used in church foyers and hospital hallways, the kind that made strangers trust her in under 10 seconds. She stood beside Grandma's framed portrait in a navy dress with a pearl clip in her hair, one hand resting near the podium, voice low and trembling in all the right places. Grandma believed in grace, Vanessa said, pausing as if the word hurt. She believed families should hold each other up, especially when people are grieving. A few heads turned toward me. Not everyone, just enough. My Uncle Curtis shifted in the second row. My cousin Layla stopped dabbing her eyes and looked down at her lap. Even the pastor's wife, who had hugged me at the door, suddenly seemed very interested in the memorial program folded in her hands. Vanessa kept going. She would never want division. She would never want suspicion cast over gifts she gave freely, or her wishes twisted into something ugly. There it was. Not my name? Not yet. She was too careful for that. But the whole room knew who she meant. My phone felt heavy in my coat pocket. The audio file was open already. 32 seconds in. Headphones disconnected. Volume tested twice in the car. I had told myself I wouldn't do this here. Not at Grandma's memorial. Not in front of the flower sprays and the guest book and the tray of lemon bars Mrs. Abbott always brought to funerals. Then Vanessa sent me a text 20 minutes before the service. Please don't make a scene today. Grandma would be ashamed. Ashamed. I looked up at the easel where they'd placed Grandma's favorite photo, the one from her 70th birthday in the yellow suit, laughing with her chin lifted like she dared life to try her. Under the frame sat a silver urn of white roses and eucalyptus. Clean, beautiful, expensive. Vanessa hadn't paid for any of it. I had, and she knew it. If you've ever been betrayed by family, you know this feeling. Vanessa's voice softened even more. Some people can't handle not being the center of attention, even today. A few people inhaled sharply. No one stopped her. My thumb moved over the play button. Then the funeral director appeared at the side door and gave me a look I couldn't quite read. Not warning, not sympathy, something closer to not yet. I took my hand off the phone. Vanessa's eyes flicked to my pocket. Just for a second. Tiny movement. But I saw it, and so did she. Her smile tightened before she lowered her lashes and pretended to cry. That was the moment I knew she was scared. Not offended. Not grieving. Scared. 3 days earlier, I still thought this could be fixed privately. I was standing in Republic Trust, staring at a woman in a gray blazer who had the kindest voice in the building and the worst sentence I'd heard all month. "I'm sorry," she said. "That account was closed last Tuesday." I blinked at her. "That's not possible." She turned the monitor slightly, enough to show me the line item without fully exposing the rest. Estate disbursement. Finalized. Balance 0. The air in the office changed. I could hear the fluorescent hum over the ceiling tiles. Someone's printer kicked on outside. A phone rang twice and stopped. "My grandmother died on Thursday," I said. "Last Thursday." The woman's polite expression faltered. "I'm only telling you what the account notes show." I slid the folder toward her. Death certificate. Copy of Grandma's will. My ID. The note from the probate attorney asking me to obtain current balances on all listed assets. The banker looked through everything carefully, slower this time. "Who is Vanessa Holloway to the deceased?" she asked. "My sister." Her eyes lifted, just slightly. "Enough. She presented herself as acting on your grandmother's instructions." "My grandmother was in hospice." The woman's voice dropped. "There is also a signed release." I felt heat rise under my collar. "Signed by who?" She hesitated. "I can't provide internal copies without a formal request, but I can tell you the release appears to carry your grandmother's signature." Appears. Not is. Appears. I stared at the desk calendar between us. Some real estate company had mailed them out for free. A beach house on the front. Too blue to be real. My grandmother's hands were shaking so badly the last month she couldn't sign a birthday card without asking me to steady the paper. The banker said nothing. That silence did more damage than any accusation could have. When I got to the parking lot, I called Vanessa once, straight to voicemail. I called again. She answered on the third ring with that same soft church voice she used at the memorial. "Hey," she said, "I'm with Aunt Denise. Is everything okay?" I laughed. It came out wrong. Too sharp. "Did you close Grandma's estate account before she died?" Silence. Then a little sigh, like I was exhausting. First of all, she said, don't call me like this. Did you? You are so determined to turn everything ugly. The blood pounded behind my eyes. Answer the question. I handled what Grandma wanted handled. While she was in hospice? Watch your tone. There was movement on her end, a car door closing, muffled voices. Then she lowered her voice. You always did this, she said. You swoop in at the end and act like you're the only person who cared. At the end? Not I didn't touch anything. Not what are you talking about? At the end. I leaned against my car so hard the metal popped. How much did you move? Move? She gave a little laugh. Oh my God, listen to yourself. Vanessa? You want to know what Grandma was tired of? She snapped, suddenly cold. Your entitlement, your bookkeeping, your little lists. She changed her mind about a lot before she passed. That landed where she meant it to, right in the old wound. Vanessa had always known which words to use to make me sound controlling and herself sound compassionate. Passionate. I said, send me the paperwork. She hung up. By dinner, half the family had heard my version, except it wasn't my version anymore. It was Vanessa's. I was harassing her. I was spiraling because Grandma trusted Vanessa more at the end. I was making money my focused days after a death. Aunt Denise texted, this is not the time. Uncle Curtis called and said, whatever happened, don't embarrass the family. Not what happened. Whatever happened. That night, I sat at Grandma's kitchen table with her old lockbox, the one Vanessa had told everyone was empty. The key had been taped under the flour tin for 15 years because Grandma distrusted banks, passwords, and clever people in loafers. Inside were 3 warranty papers, a string of broken pearls, 2 savings bonds, and an envelope with my name in Grandma's handwriting. Not typed, not printed, her handwriting. My hand started shaking before I even opened it. There was no long letter. Grandma wasn't sentimental on paper, just one folded note and a flash drive secured with clear tape. The note said, if Vanessa starts performing, don't argue. Listen first. I stared at the line until the words blurred. Then I plugged in the drive. There were only 2 files on it. One was a scanned letter from her attorney dated 6 weeks earlier. The other was an audio recording with a timestamp from the Monday before she died. I clicked play, and before the waveform had fully loaded, I heard Vanessa's voice say, clear as glass in a quiet room. Grandma, if you tell them I was here, they'll ask questions about the papers. I didn't breathe for the first 5 seconds of the recording. There was a scrape of fabric, the hiss of Grandma's oxygen machine, then Vanessa again, closer this time, her voice pitched low and sweet in that fake, careful way she used when she was trying to control a room. Grandma, listen to me. If you tell them I was here, they'll ask questions about the papers. A pause. Then Grandma, thin but steady. Then maybe they should. I sat back so hard the chair legs dragged across the tile. The kitchen looked exactly the same as it had that morning. The ceramic rooster by the sink, the half-dead African violet on the sill, the dish towel folded over the oven handle. But something in it had turned. Like the room had been holding its breath, waiting for me to catch up. On the audio, Vanessa let out a little laugh. Not amused, cornered. You're confused. I am dying, Grandma said. Not confused. I pressed a hand over my mouth. The recording wasn't long, just under 4 minutes, but every second shifted the floor. Vanessa kept trying to steer her. You told me to handle it. You said you didn't want to fight. You said she'd only drag this through court. Each sentence came out smooth and rehearsed, like she'd been testing the script in mirrors. Grandma didn't raise her voice once. She just kept saying no. No, I didn't tell you to empty anything. No, I didn't sign that in front of a witness. No, you are not helping me by hiding things. Then, near the end, a sound I couldn't place at first. Paper sliding. A drawer, maybe. Vanessa breathing harder, and Grandma suddenly sharper than I'd heard her in weeks. Put that back. The file ended there. No dramatic confession. No movie ending. Just enough truth to ruin a lie if the right ears heard it. I played it 3 times. By the 3rd, I'd stopped shaking. At 10:14 p.m., I called the probate attorney, Daniel Reeves, and left a voicemail calm enough to scare myself. I said I had reason to believe estate funds had been moved before death, a release may have been forged, and I had audio evidence that suggested concealment. I asked him to call me first thing in the morning. Then I locked the flash drive in my coat pocket and started making a list. Bank, attorney, hospice log, witnesses, phone records. I slept maybe an hour, By 8 the next morning, Daniel called back from a number I didn't recognize. He sounded like a man already regretting being awake. "Tell me exactly what you have," he said. I did. He didn't interrupt until I mentioned the recording. Then he asked me to stop and replay the relevant section on speaker. I held my phone out over the kitchen table while Grandma's voice filled the room again. When it ended, he was quiet for a beat too long. "That," he said carefully, "is not nothing. Not nothing." I almost laughed. "What do I do?" "You send me the audio file, the note, and a photo of the flash drive. Do not send copies to family. Do not threaten anyone. Do not announce what you have." "She already has." "Good," he said. "Let her keep talking." That was the first useful thing anyone had said to me. By noon, I had 2 emails from Daniel. The first was a formal records request to Republic Trust. The second was a shorter note asking for the hospice visitor log from Grandma's final 10 days. I drove to St. Anne's myself. The hospice receptionist recognized me and softened immediately. She'd seen me there enough those last weeks to know my coffee order and when I needed not to talk. When I explained I needed the visitor log for estate reasons, her expression changed. Not suspicion, recognition. She disappeared into the back and returned with a clipboard copy and a tight mouth. Vanessa had signed in 3 times during hours she later told everyone she couldn't bear to visit. Once on Monday evening, once Tuesday morning, once Wednesday just before lunch. Monday was the date on the audio file. Tuesday was the date the bank account had been closed. Wednesday was the day Vanessa posted a Bible verse about peace in hard seasons and told the family she was too overwhelmed to answer calls. I thanked the receptionist and started to leave. She said, "Your grandmother asked for you that Tuesday afternoon." I turned back. The woman fiddled with the edge of the clipboard. "I'm probably saying too much, but she asked twice. We were told you were on your way." I wasn't called. Her eyes lifted, then dropped. I figured that out later. The parking lot tilted for a second. Vanessa hadn't just moved money. She had blocked access, managed the hallway, curated the story while Grandma was still alive. By the time I got home, Aunt Denise had left me 2 voicemails. The first was wounded and breathy. "I don't understand why you're being so hostile when your sister has done everything." The second was colder. "Vanessa showed me messages. You need to calm down before you create permanent damage." Showed her messages. Not all the messages, obviously. I opened our text thread and scrolled. Mine were blunt. Hers were artful. She never answered directly. She redirected, provoked, then sent paragraphs about my tone. If someone skimmed it, I looked aggressive, and she looked patient. Classic Vanessa. Commit the act in private. Curate the aftermath in screenshots. At 3, Uncle Curtis called again. "You need to let the memorial happen without drama," he said. "I'm not the one staging speeches." "That's not fair. What did she tell you?" A pause. He exhaled through his nose. "She said Grandma changed some distributions because she was disappointed in how you'd been pressuring her." The sentence hit me like cold water. Distributions. Plural. So there it was, not just the bank account. She wasn't containing the lie anymore. She was expanding it, testing how much the family would swallow. She said that? She was trying not to tell me, but yes, trying not to tell him. I closed my eyes. "Curtis, did you actually see any paperwork?" "No, but then stop repeating it," he bristled. "Don't talk to me like I'm stupid. I'm talking to you like you're being used." He hung up. An hour later, Cousin Layla texted me a screenshot with no caption. It was from Vanessa's private family group chat. Not the big one. The smaller one. The real one. The one I apparently hadn't been in for months. Vanessa had written, "I hate that she's doing this before the memorial. Vanessa, Grandma trusted me to handle final things, and now I'm being painted like some thief." Below it, Aunt Denise, "We know the truth." Then Layla, privately to me, "She sent this before you even called Denise. Thought you should know." I stared at the screen. Before. That meant Vanessa started preparing witnesses before I'd even confronted her. She knew exactly what she'd done, exactly what I might find, and exactly how fast she had to poison the room. I typed back, "Do not tell her you sent this." Layla replied instantly, "I won't. Be careful tomorrow. She's planning something." I looked around Grandma's kitchen again. The neat spice rack, the ticking wall clock, the yellow notepad where she kept grocery totals down to the cent. And for the first time, the memorial stopped feeling like a service. It felt like a stage. And Vanessa was already in costume. The morning of the memorial, Daniel Reeves emailed me 3 files with no greeting and 1 line in the body. Read in order. I was parked across from the chapel with the engine off, heat ticking under the hood, flower deliveries passing through the side entrance one by one. Vanessa's car was already there. Of course it was. She liked arriving early enough to own the room. I opened the first file. Republic Trust had responded to the formal request faster than I expected, probably because someone in legal had heard the word forgery and decided not to be heroic. The document was a scan of the release Vanessa had used to close the estate account. At first glance, it looked convincing. Grandma's name was there in blue ink. The signature looped the way hers usually did. There was a witness line. There was even a notary stamp at the bottom. Then I looked at the date, Tuesday, 11:12 a.m. I opened the hospice visitor log Daniel had attached underneath. Vanessa signed into St. Anne's at 10:41 a.m. that same Tuesday. St. Anne's was 28 minutes from the bank without traffic, 40 if the lights caught you wrong. Grandma was in hospice at 11:12. Vanessa had notarized a signature from a woman who was, at that exact time, hooked to oxygen in a monitored room 2 towns away. My hands went cold in a very calm way. I opened the second file. The notary stamp belonged to a woman named Karen Bell. Commission valid, state ID matched, address matched a shipping store on Route 6. Daniel had highlighted 1 line from Karen Bell's notary log, obtained through subpoena threat and what I imagined was a very unpleasant phone call. Document type, personal property release. Signer, Eleanor Holloway. ID presented, state ID. Witness present, V. Holloway. Signature taken off-site. Off-site. I read it twice. Then I noticed the line directly beneath it in Karen's own notes, handwritten and slightly slanted. Signer remained in vehicle. Daughter handled most communication. Daughter. Not granddaughter. Not niece. Daughter. Vanessa had either let the notary assume she was Grandma's daughter and never corrected it, or she had said it outright because it made questions go away faster. I stared through the windshield at the chapel doors. The file in my lap had stopped being a family fight. It was starting to look like a chain of deliberate moves. The third attachment was the one that changed everything. Phone records. Not a full dump. Just a narrow set Daniel had managed to get from numbers already listed in the estate correspondence. Calls between Vanessa, Aunt Denise, and an unfamiliar number belonging to a printing shop in Westfield. Tuesday, 8:16 a.m. Vanessa to print shop. 6 minutes. Tuesday, 9:02 a.m. print shop to Vanessa. 2 minutes. Tuesday, 9:47 a.m. Vanessa to Aunt Denise. 11 minutes. Tuesday, 10:03 a.m. Vanessa to Karen Bell. 4 minutes. Tuesday, 12:28 p.m. Vanessa to Uncle Curtis. 9 minutes. Tuesday, 1:11 p.m. Aunt Denise to Vanessa. 13 minutes. A timeline. Paperwork. Coordination. Messaging. Not panic. Planning. My phone buzzed in my hand. Layla, she's telling people you've been threatening legal action because you're broke. I actually laughed. Not because it was funny, because Vanessa never knew when to stop decorating a lie. One theft wasn't enough. One story wasn't enough. She had to build motive, character, atmosphere. She had to make me look desperate so no one would ask why she seemed prepared. I typed back, don't argue with her. Just watch. Layla sent, I am watching. Also, Denise has a folder with her. A folder. I looked toward the entrance just in time to see Aunt Denise step out of a silver SUV holding a cream-colored document case against her chest like a hymn book. Vanessa came through the side door to meet her and took Denise by the elbow before they even reached the steps. They spoke for maybe 15 seconds. Denise frowned. Vanessa smiled. Denise nodded. Then Vanessa took the folder. That was all I needed to see. I got out of the car and crossed the street. Inside, the chapel smelled like lilies, lemon polish, and coffee gone slightly burnt on the warmer. Staff moved quietly between rows, adjusting programs, straightening chairs. At the front, beneath the spray of white roses, Vanessa stood with Denise and the pastor, the cream folder tucked under her arm now. She saw me immediately. Her chin lifted. Not startled, calculating. Can we not do this here? She said before I even reached them. The pastor looked between us and made a diplomatic retreat toward the organ. Denise kept her lips pressed together. Please. I looked at the folder. What's in there? Vanessa's hand tightened on it. Programs. Notes. Things for the service. Show me. She gave a small, incredulous smile, like I'd asked to inspect her purse. You don't get to interrogate people because you're upset. Then let Denise hold it. Denise blinked. Why would that matter? Because if it's only programs, it doesn't. Vanessa turned slightly, shielding the folder with her body. Tiny move, huge tell. I said, "Did you print a new will?" Denise sucked in a breath. Vanessa's face stayed almost perfectly composed, but the color in it shifted. Just a fraction. "There is no new will," she said. "That wasn't my question." "You are out of line." "Am I? Because I've got a bank release notarized while Grandma was in hospice, and now you're carrying paperwork into her memorial like you're still managing her." Denise looked at Vanessa then, fast and sharp. "What is she talking about?" Vanessa didn't answer her. She kept her eyes on me. That was another tell. "What exactly do you think you have?" she asked quietly. There it was. Not denial. Measurement. I stepped closer. Enough. For the first time that morning, her expression slipped. Not much. Just the smallest flattening around the eyes. A person calculating distances after hearing a gun cock in another room. Then she recovered and turned to Denise with perfect injury in her voice. "This is what I've been dealing with," she said. "She corners me, makes accusations, twists everything. I was trying to spare all of you until after today." Denise looked torn in the exact way Vanessa always counted on. She didn't know what was true, but she knew who sounded calmer. Vanessa leaned in toward me, smile still on, voice low enough that Denise couldn't catch the words. "You really want to do this in front of Grandma's picture?" she asked. I kept my face still. "You did?" She stared at me for 1 second too long, then handed the folder to Denise. "Hold this," she said. It was the first thing she'd surrendered, and that alone told me the folder mattered. She brushed past me toward the side hallway, motioning with 2 fingers for me to follow. Like I was a problem she could still solve in private. I looked at Denise clutching the folder, confused and suddenly nervous. Then I followed my sister down the narrow hall beside the chapel kitchen, where the noise from the arriving family dropped away and the walls closed in. Vanessa stopped at the last door before the back exit, turned to face me, and said, very clearly, "You should have listened when Grandma told you not to push." Then she reached into her bag and pulled out a second flash drive. Vanessa held the flash drive between 2 fingers like it was a knife she didn't mind using. The hallway light was bad for faces. It flattened people, took warmth out of skin, made every blink look deliberate. In that narrow strip between the chapel kitchen and the back exit, my sister looked less polished than she had at the podium. The smile was gone. Her shoulders were still straight, but one heel tapped once against the tile before she stilled it. "What's that?" I asked. Her mouth curved. "Protection." She stepped closer and lowered her voice. "Since you've decided to collect little souvenirs, I thought you should know Grandma recorded more than one conversation." I didn't reach for it. Vanessa watched my face carefully. She wanted impact, a flinch, a tell, something she could build on. When she didn't get one, she said exactly who she trusted to handle things. She said exactly why. A bluff would have come faster. This had detail. Detail meant she had something, not necessarily enough, but something. "Play it," I said. Her eyes narrowed a fraction. She had expected resistance, not permission. "No," she said after a beat. "Not for you. For them. If you force me." There it was. Leverage, not truth. I folded my arms. "So you brought backup evidence to a memorial. You brought yours. I brought grief. You brought a thumb drive." Her jaw tightened. "You always do this. You act like tone is morality." I almost smiled. She only got sharp when she felt the ground moving. I said, "What's on it?" She tilted her head. "A message from Grandma saying I was supposed to manage the account, the arrangements, and the distributions because you make everything adversarial. Distributions again." She was committed to that word now. That meant she'd already used it on other people. She needed it to survive. "Interesting," I said, "because the will says otherwise." People change their minds. "Then why not probate it?" Her face went still. Not confused, caught choosing. "We both know Grandma didn't want court," she said. "That's not an answer. And you think a 4-minute recording gives you one?" So she knew, or guessed, what I had. I let that sit between us. Then I said the one thing she wasn't prepared for. "Go ahead." She blinked. "What?" "Play it. Tell your story. Use the folder too." For the first time all day, Vanessa looked wrong-footed. Not because I'd threatened her. Because I hadn't. People like Vanessa prepared for resistance. They sharpened around obstacles. What they hated was room. Permission. Enough rope laid flat at their feet. She searched my face for the trap and didn't find it fast enough. "You think I'm bluffing," she said. "I think you came here planning for me. And? And now I'm planning for you." That landed. The tap in her heel came back, once, twice. She stopped it again and leaned in close enough for me to smell her perfume. "If you humiliate me in there," she said, "you will lose the whole family." I kept my voice level. If the whole family needs lies to stay intact, then it's already gone. Something flashed across her face then. Anger, yes. But underneath it, strain. She was carrying too many moving parts now. Denise, Curtis, the folder, the speech, whatever was on the drive, the family group chat, the bank, me. Pressure made Vanessa meaner. It also made her sloppy. She gave me one last look and slipped the flash drive back into her bag. "Do what you want," she said. Then she walked past me toward the chapel, shoulders set so rigidly they looked locked. I waited 3 seconds, pulled out my phone, and called Daniel. He picked up on the second ring. "Tell me." "She has another recording," I said. "Claims Grandma authorized her to manage the account and distributions. She also brought a folder into the memorial, possibly printed documents." "Can you get eyes on either?" "Denise has the folder." "Not good enough." "I know." He was silent for a moment. Then, "Do not confront the paperwork privately unless you can photograph it. Better outcome is to let her rely on it publicly. People believe what they hear themselves." That was exactly what I had been thinking, and hearing him say it made my pulse settle. "She's going to use the service," I said. "Then make her commit on record. In a church. In a room full of witnesses." I looked toward the chapel doors. Staff were guiding late arrivals inside now. Soft organ music had started, distant through the wall. Daniel's voice sharpened. "Can you play audio clearly in the room?" "Yes." "Then don't lead with accusation. Let her say enough first that your recording becomes contradiction, not attack." That was the trap. Not just exposing her. Letting her lock herself into a version so cleanly that when Grandma's voice came through, there would be nowhere left to stand. "Anything else?" I asked. "Yes. I got Karen Bell on the phone 10 minutes ago." I straightened. "She remembers the appointment. She says the signer barely spoke and kept her face turned away. Vanessa did nearly all the talking. Karen is suddenly very interested in correcting the record." My hand tightened around the phone. "Will she say that formally?" "She said she'd speak to investigators if needed. I'm drafting the affidavit language now." "So she knows." "Oh, she knows. More important, Vanessa doesn't know I reached her." That was useful. Very useful. "Send me whatever you have," I said. "Already did." The email hit before the call ended. When I opened it, there were 2 paragraphs from Daniel and 1 screenshot of Karen Bell's text. "Please advise how to amend my statement. I may have been misled about the signer's identity." Not proof for the room, not yet, but enough to keep my spine straight. I stepped back into the chapel and let the atmosphere hit me all at once. White flowers, murmured greetings, tissue paper rustling, old family friends squeezing hands, the pastor near the front, Grandma's portrait glowing under borrowed light, and Vanessa near the first row, calm again. Too calm. She was talking to Uncle Curtis now, one hand on his sleeve, the other briefly touching her chest in that wounded, noble way of hers. Denise stood beside them, holding the cream folder. Layla caught my eye from across the aisle and made the smallest movement with her chin toward the AV booth in the back. I moved there first. The funeral director, Mr. Pritchard, looked up as I approached. Tall, silver-haired, expression professionally neutral. Earlier, he'd given me that not yet look. Now I understood why. He had seen families turn services into courtrooms before. "I need one thing," I said quietly. "At the right moment, I may need to play an audio file from my phone through the room speakers." His face did not change. "Is it part of the tribute?" "It may become necessary." He studied me for a second, then glanced toward Vanessa at the front. That told me everything. He had already clocked her too. "I can patch you in from here," he said softly. "But once it's played, it's played." "I know." He handed me a small auxiliary adapter from the booth shelf and closed my fingers around it. "Then choose your moment carefully." I slipped it into my pocket and turned. Across the room, Aunt Denise had set the cream folder down on the front pew while she hugged one of Grandma's bridge friends. Vanessa was still occupied with Curtis. No one was looking at the folder. Not yet. I crossed the aisle without hurrying. That was the trick with moments like this. The room was already full of nerves, perfume, grief, old resentments pressed under black fabric. If I moved too fast, I became the problem before I even touched the truth. The cream folder sat on the front pew beside a stack of memorial programs and a half-crushed tissue. Plain, expensive, the kind with a magnetic flap. I picked it up just as Denise turned back from her hug. "What are you doing?" she whispered. "Looking." Her hand came out instinctively, then stopped when she saw my face. Vanessa noticed a second later. From across the front row, she went still in a way only people who are deeply controlling ever do. Not loud, not panicked, just suddenly motionless, like she was trying to freeze the next 10 seconds before they happened. "Give me that," she said. Not sisterly, not grieving, flat. A few conversations near the back faded. You could feel a tension pivot. I opened the flap. Inside were three things: a typed statement on cream paper with Grandma's name at the bottom, a one-page family distribution summary with handwritten percentages beside four names, and a copy of the notarized bank release. Vanessa moved first, heels sharp against the floor. "You have lost your mind." I held up the top page before she could snatch it. The statement was written in language Grandma never used. Phrases like personal representative of my verbal wishes and equitable adjustment of prior support. Clean, legal-sounding fog. At the bottom, a shaky signature floated too neatly above the line. Not her voice, not her wording, not even her kind of anger. Denise stared at the page. "Vanessa." "It was for after," Vanessa snapped. "After today, because I knew she would do this." There it was again. Every lie came preloaded with a reason she had needed to lie. People were watching now. Cousins half standing. Old neighbors pretending not to. Curtis taking 2 steps forward and then stopping because he still hadn't figured out where safety was. The pastor started toward us. Vanessa saw him and changed masks instantly. Her face softened. Her voice broke in exactly the right place. "I tried to keep this private," she said to the room. "I tried to protect Grandma's dignity." That was when I looked at the second page. The distribution summary had 4 names. Mine, Vanessa's, Denise's, and Curtis's. Layla's name wasn't there. Neither was Grandma's church fund, which had been in the will. Vanessa had slashed through the printed percentage beside my name and written 0 in dark ink. 0. I let out a breath through my nose and held up the page. "You forged a new family summary, too?" "It's not forged," she said quickly, too quickly. "It reflects Grandma's final intentions." "In whose handwriting?" "She dictated it." "To who?" "She didn't need." "To who?" Her mouth opened. Closed. That tiny stall was enough. The pastor arrived, hands raised slightly. "Ladies," Vanessa turned toward him with watery eyes. "She is trying to ruin her grandmother's memorial over money." I said, "Then let's talk about the money." The room tightened. Curtis said, "This is not the place." But even he didn't sound certain anymore. I held up the bank release. "This document says Grandma signed at 11:12 a.m. Tuesday." Vanessa folded her arms. "Because she did." I looked at Denise, then Curtis, then the pastor. I made sure my voice stayed calm enough that no one could call it hysterical. "Grandma was in hospice at 11:12 a.m. Tuesday." Silence. Vanessa laughed once, small and dismissive. "That proves nothing." I took out my phone. "It does when the hospice visitor log shows you signed in there at 10:41 that morning, and when the notary's own notes say the signer stayed in a vehicle while you handled most of the communication." That landed harder. Denise's face changed first. Not belief yet, but the first crack of it. Vanessa's chin lifted. "You can twist anything into a narrative." I nodded once. "That's true." Then I walked to the AV booth. The room followed me with its eyes. Vanessa said my name sharply, but there was something new under it now. Not outrage. Calculation failing in real time. Mr. Pritchard was already waiting. I handed him my phone and the small adapter. My fingers were steady. That surprised me. Maybe because by then I wasn't doing this for revenge anymore. I was doing it because Grandma had left instructions in her own handwriting. "If Vanessa starts performing, don't argue. Listen first." Mr. Pritchard patched the phone in. The speakers hummed once. Vanessa took a step toward the booth. "You cannot do this here." I looked straight at her. "You should have thought of that before you brought lies into the building." Then I nodded to Mr. Pritchard. The room filled with the soft mechanical hiss of Grandma's oxygen machine. No one moved. Vanessa's voice came through first, gentle and poisonous at once. "Grandma, if you tell them I was here." They'll ask questions about the papers. A woman near the third row gasped. On the recording, Grandma answered, thin but unmistakable. Then maybe they should. You could feel recognition move through the room like cold air. Vanessa froze, not metaphorically, physically. Her shoulders locked, her mouth parted a little. She didn't even glance around to measure the damage. She just stared at the speaker mounted over the side wall, as if the voice coming from it had reached through time and put a hand around her throat. The audio kept going. You're confused. I am dying. Not confused. A murmur broke behind me. Curtis turned his head slowly toward Vanessa, then back to the floor. Denise's hand went to her mouth. The pastor closed his eyes for 1 second, like he wished he were anywhere else. Then the final section played. No, I didn't tell you to empty anything. No, I didn't sign that in front of a witness. No, you are not helping me by hiding things. And then, sharp as a blade, put that back. The recording ended. No music. No dramatic echo. Just the click of silence returning to the speakers and 60 people suddenly unsure where to look. Vanessa found her voice first, but it came out wrong. That is out of context. Too thin. Too fast. Dead on arrival. I turned toward the room before she could build momentum. She told everyone Grandma changed distributions. She said Grandma trusted her to handle final things. She closed the account before Grandma died, used this release, and came here today with new paperwork. I held up the cream folder. No more private explanations. No more selective screenshots. No more tone. If there is a real document, let it go through probate. If there isn't, stop saying Grandma wanted what she never said. Denise stepped back from Vanessa like she had just noticed standing too close to a fire. Curtis said, very quietly, Vanessa, tell me that's not your voice. Vanessa looked at him, then at me, then at the folder still in my hand. For the first time in her life, charm didn't get there in time. Nobody sat down. That was the first thing I noticed after the recording ended and the room went quiet. People stayed half-turned in the aisle, half-risen from pews, memorial programs bent in their hands. The service had split open, and nobody knew how to stitch it closed fast enough to pretend it hadn't. Vanessa did what she always did when a lie got cornered. She reached for a smaller lie. She was medicated, she said, voice thin but trying for steady. You can't take one conversation from hospice and act like it changes everything. No one answered, because everyone in that room had heard the problem with that sentence. Not that Grandma sounded confused, that Vanessa sounded prepared. The pastor stepped forward carefully, palms open. I think we need to pause. Vanessa swung toward him. Pause for what? For her ambush? But it was over. You could hear it in the room. The old automatic sympathy she depended on was gone. Not replaced with support for me exactly. Not yet. Just removed from her, which was enough. Aunt Denise looked down at the cream folder in my hand like it had become something filthy. What is that typed statement? She asked. Vanessa didn't answer. Denise's voice rose, not loud, just sharper than I had heard it in years. Vanessa, it was notes, she snapped. Draft language, things Grandma said she wanted handled. Then why is it signed? That one landed harder than anything I could have added. Curtis took the bank release from my other hand and stared at it, jaw working. This says witness present. No one spoke. He looked up. Who witnessed it? Vanessa opened her mouth, but the answer wouldn't come fast enough. In our family, speed had always been half her power. She could explain, redirect, reframe before people fully formed their questions. Standing there in front of Grandma's portrait, with the recording still hanging in the air, she had lost that speed. Layla stepped out from the third row and said, she was telling people before any of this that you were broke and trying to shake her down. Vanessa turned on her. Stay out of it. Layla didn't move. No. That tiny word did something to the room. It gave everybody else permission. Mrs. Abbott from church, who had known Grandma for 30 years, looked at Vanessa and said quietly, Eleanor was never vague. If she changed something, she would have told people. Another cousin near the back said, why was there a separate family chat? Then Denise, almost to herself, why did you tell me there were updated distributions? Questions started coming from different parts of the chapel now, not shouting. Worse. Worse. Calm. Direct. Hard to outrun. Vanessa tried once more to gather them back under her. She was upset near the end, she said. She said things. You all know how things get in hospice. Curtis looked at her for a long second. I was in hospice with my wife, he said. Don't do that. That shut her down. I hadn't expected that from him. Maybe he hadn't either. But once it was said, it stayed. Curtis lowered the paper and took 2 steps away from Vanessa. Not dramatic, just final enough that everyone saw it. Mr. Pritchard, still by the AV booth, cleared his throat softly and asked the pastor if he wanted the microphone muted. The pastor nodded without looking up. The room no longer belonged to Vanessa. It didn't belong to me either. It belonged to the truth, which was messier than a speech and far less elegant than a performance. I set the cream folder on the front pew and took 1 page from inside it. The fake family distribution summary with my name marked to 0. I'm not discussing this here any further, I said. The attorney has the audio. The bank records are being reviewed. The hospice log exists. Whatever this is goes through probate now. Vanessa looked at me then with a kind of naked hatred I hadn't seen since we were teenagers, and she got caught taking cash from Grandma's purse and somehow turned dinner into a discussion about my attitude. Back then, I was still young enough to think exposure would fix a person. It didn't. It just removed their cover. You are enjoying this, she said. I shook my head. No. And that was the truth. My hands weren't trembling anymore. My heart wasn't racing. But none of it felt good. Necessary, yes. Clean, maybe. Not good. The pastor stepped beside Grandma's portrait and said, with the exhausted gravity of someone abandoning his prepared remarks, "Today was meant to honor Eleanor Holloway. We are going to do that. Anyone who needs to leave may leave. Anyone who stays will do so in peace." He looked directly at Vanessa when he said the last word. She noticed. For a second, I thought she might try one final scene. Cry, collapse, accuse me of cruelty, force the room to comfort her out of habit. But something in the faces around her must have told her that script was dead too. Denise wouldn't catch her. Curtis wouldn't defend her. Leela wouldn't flinch. Even the church women had gone still in that particular way older women do when they've decided they are finished being fooled. Vanessa picked up her purse. That was all. No apology. No confession. No dramatic exit line. She just took 1 step back, then another, and walked down the side aisle alone while every eye in the room followed her. Her heels clicked against the chapel floor, crisp and hollow. At the door, she hesitated, maybe expecting someone to come after her. No one did. When the door shut behind her, the room exhaled. Denise sat down hard on the front pew like her knees had finally told the truth before the rest of her did. Curtis stayed standing a moment longer, looking at the closed door, then turned to me. "I should have asked for proof," he said. I nodded once. "Yes." He accepted that. No defensiveness, no argument. Denise rubbed at her eyes with the heel of her hand and whispered, "I helped her hand things around. I told people to trust her." I sat beside her because Grandma would have hated me if I made that moment uglier than it already was. "She counted on that," I said. Denise started crying then. Not loud, not showy, just the sound of a person realizing how much damage can be done by wanting peace more than clarity. The memorial itself was smaller than planned after that. Simpler too. The pastor spoke without embellishment. Mrs. Abbott told a story about Grandma cheating at bridge with perfect dignity. Layla read a psalm in a voice that shook only once. I said a few words at the end and kept them where they belonged. I talked about Grandma's hands, how she always smelled like hand cream and cinnamon, how she wrote every bill in blue pen and circled totals twice, how she hated vague people and overcooked vegetables, how, when she loved you, she showed it by remembering exactly how you took your coffee and exactly what lie you were telling. That got the first real laugh of the day, a needed one. Afterward, people hugged me differently than they had when they arrived. Less cautious. Less curious. More certain. A few apologized. A few didn't, but their faces did it for them. Daniel texted during the reception. "Preserve everything. Do not meet her alone." I replied, "Already decided." I changed the locks on Grandma's house the next morning. I boxed Vanessa's things from the hall closet and left them with Daniel's office instead of contacting her directly. I sent one email, copied to counsel with no extra emotion in it. All estate matters now go through the attorney. Do not contact me except through legal channels. Then I blocked her number. Blocked Aunt Denise for a week too, until I could hear her without hearing Vanessa in the background of her thinking. Kept Curtis at a distance. Kept Layla close. Changed the gate code. Moved the flash drive into a safe deposit box under my name only. Quiet. Practical things. Grandma's kind of things. By the end of that week, the family story had changed, not into something pretty, just something true. Vanessa hadn't had a misunderstanding. She hadn't tried to help and gotten blamed for it. She had moved money, managed access, built cover, and brought forged dignity to a memorial in a cream folder. And Grandma, even dying, had seen her clearly enough to leave me exactly what I needed. Not revenge. Instructions.